You open your eyes to a cold morning in the American West, the year 1870. The sky above is a pale wash of dawn, stretching endlessly over a rugged prairie. You're wrapped in a scratchy wool blanket, lying on a hard-packed piece of earth that's done little to cushion your back through the night. Already, your joints are stiff, your muscles sore, and there's a deep ache running through your lower spine, a gift from the 14 hours you spent in the saddle yesterday. You stretch with a low groan, hearing the subtle sounds of a cowboy camp slowly coming back to life. All around you, shapes stir under rough blankets, 15 other cowboys waking up to another day on the trail. You've been riding with them for 3 weeks now, pushing 2,000 Texas Longhorns north, from the dry pastures of Texas toward the distant railheads in Abilene, Kansas. If the weather cooperates and nothing goes wrong, you've got 3 more weeks to go. The scent of coffee pulls you out of your half-sleep. Cookie, the cantankerous camp cook, is already up by the chuck wagon, tending to a blackened pot balanced above an open fire. You'd swear he never sleeps. You sit up slowly, brushing the crusted dust from your shirt, your fingers catching on calluses, rope burns, and the grime of countless days without a proper wash. You yank your boots over feet that throb slightly and give them a good shake. Scorpions and spiders love the darkness of a cowboy's boot, and you've learned not to take chances. "Rise and shine, boys," bellows the trail boss in that deep, wind-burned voice of his. "Sun's coming up, and them cows ain't gonna walk themselves." The rest of the camp is moving. Now men, stretching, swearing, softly reaching for gear and coffee. You pull on your hat, the same Stetson that's been beaten by wind and rain, but still does its job keeping the harsh sun off your face. The bandana around your neck gets pulled up over your mouth, ready for the day's dust. You're not alone out here. This outfit is made up of tough men from every background you can imagine. Some are freedmen from the South. A few are Mexican vaqueros who taught the American cowboy most of what he knows. There are immigrants from Europe, farm boys from the Midwest, and young men born right here in the territories. Out here, nobody much cares where you came from. You're all just cowboys now. You all ride the same trail, eat the same beans, and face the same dangers. You wander toward the chuck wagon, your boots crunching against dry dirt. Cookie grumbles and slaps a dented tin plate into your hands. The food's the same as always, bacon and beans, but it's hot, and that's all that matters. You eat sitting on the ground, staring at the pinkening sky, and sipping bitter black coffee from a tin cup. It's not elegant, but it's home for now. You pack up your bedroll, after eating, rolling it tight and strapping it behind your saddle. Everything you own fits in that roll: an extra shirt, a spare pair of socks, your straight razor, a pouch of tobacco, and a worn photograph of your mother tucked into your boot alongside $35 in wages. It's not much, but it'll keep you going through the winter if you're careful. Your gelding waits patiently, ears flicking as you check him over. You run your hands down his legs, pick stones from his hooves, make sure nothing's sore. A lame horse out here could mean death. You'd be left behind, unable to keep pace with the drive, and no man can herd cattle on foot. Once everything's checked and tightened, you swing into the saddle, the leather creaking beneath your weight. Your body settles in like it was made for it, your muscles knowing the shape of this job after years spent riding. Today, you'll ride flank again. That means keeping the cattle bunched together from the side and chasing down any that wander off. The point riders take the lead, guiding the herd's direction, while the drag riders sit at the rear, swallowing the worst of the dust. You don't envy them. The herd's already starting to stir. In the distance, you can see them, thousands of lean, long-horned shadows against the golden grass. Some are still lying down, others stretching their legs, their horns gleaming in the rising light. Texas. Longhorns are tough animals, half wild, and twice as mean when spooked. This isn't some placid herd of modern beef cattle. These animals will test you every mile. You start your day as you always do, kicking your gelding into a trot along the flank, watching the cattle, keeping your eyes open for signs of trouble. Your hands grip the reins loose but ready, and your rope hangs coiled at your saddle, ready to fly if needed. The dust rises quickly, a thick yellow haze kicked up by hooves, and you pull your bandana higher. It'll do little good. By noon, your mouth will taste of dirt, your skin coated in a fine grit that settles into every crack and fold. The sun climbs fast, and soon the prairie turns into an oven. Sweat soaks your shirt and dries again in salty patches. You sip water sparingly. That canteen on your hip has to last you until the next camp. You can't afford to get careless. A sudden movement catches your eye, a yearling breaking away from the herd. You shift in the saddle, press your knees against your horse's flanks, and give a whistle. Instantly, the gelding lurches into motion, sprinting after the rogue steer. You uncoil your rope, swing it overhead once, twice, then throw. The loop flies perfect, dropping around the steer's neck. Your horse braces muscles, bunching beneath you, and the steer jerks to a halt. You turn him back, guiding him toward the herd. He rejoins the others, and you circle back to your spot, coiling your rope again. Your shoulders ache, but there's no time to rest. Another steer's drifting, and another cowboy's already on it. This is your life. Hours of heat and dust broken only by moments of sheer precise action. You live for those moments. They're what keep you sharp. By mid-afternoon, the trail boss calls for a shift eastward. There's a creek ahead, and he wants to make camp near water. A bed ground with good grazing, easy containment, and a natural water source is gold out here. You follow the adjustment, keeping the herd tight. As the sun begins to sink low in the sky, the cattle grow restless. They know the day's end is near. You ride a little harder, guiding them toward the creek. It's a good sight, grass on one side, rising ground on the other. Natural barriers. When the herd beds down, you dismount with a groan. Your legs are stiff, knees aching. You move like an old man. But before you see to yourself, you see to your horse. Always. Saddle off bridle, off a quick brush down, with your hands a check for sores. Only once he's fed and watered do you think about your own needs. Cookie's already dishing out more beans and bacon. You join the line, take your plate, and eat in silence. Nobody talks much. Words are for earlier in the day. Now's the time for food, for a quiet breath, for watching the sky turn from gold to violet to black. You'll take second watch tonight. That means a few hours of sleep, then patrol. It's better than first watch, but not by much. You finish your meal and find your bedroll, spreading it near your gear. You don't bother removing your clothes, just your boots placed carefully beside you. The stars come out brilliant against the dark sky. You lie there, the saddle under your head, your blanket pulled up tight. This is peace in the cowboy life. A rare moment when the sky is quiet. The cattle are calm, and the earth beneath you feels solid. Your eyelids grow heavy. Tomorrow will be more of the same. But for now, you surrender to sleep beneath the stars, your deep and deep sleep dreams, flickering like old photographs, green fields. Your mother's voice, the heavy smell of saddle leather when a hand on your shoulder wakes you. Not a rough shake, but a firm nudge. Your watch whispers Luis, one of the Mexican vaqueros. His eyes glint faintly beneath the brim of his hat, the rest of his face nearly swallowed by the darkness. All quiet so far? He murmurs, his voice barely above a breath. You sit up, bones groaning in protest, and blink hard to clear the fog of sleep. Your back throbs, and your legs feel like dead weight. The air's colder now, a crisp bite in every breath, and your breath ghosts out in pale clouds as you pull on your boots. You reach for your wool coat, the same one you've worn for 3 winters. Heavy, worn thin at the cuffs, but a welcome barrier against the prairie chill. Luis hands you a tin cup coffee, still hot from the low-burning fire. You nod your thanks. No one wastes words at this hour. The silence is sacred. Even the cattle sleep. You drink quickly, the bitter taste jarring but necessary. Then you make your way to the picket line where your gelding stands waiting. He lifts his head as you approach ears, flicking as if to say, "Again." You run a hand along his neck. "Just a few hours old, boy," you whisper. The leather creaks softly as you saddle him in the moonlight. You check the cinch twice. Out here, a loose strap can mean the difference between life and death. Finally, with one last breath, you swing into the saddle and ease him into a slow walk toward the sleeping herd. The cattle lie in a broad, dark mass across the meadow, breathing in a slow rhythm. Soft snorts, occasional sighs, the rustle of hooves against grass. Most are still. A few shift now and then. You take your place in the slow circle around them, joining 4 other riders on night watch, each spaced like points on a compass. There's no talking now, no jokes, no stories. Night watch is for reflection observation. And if you're not careful, seeing things that aren't there. You hum low and steady as you ride a half melody with no words. It isn't for you. It's for the herd. The sound tells them where you are. It keeps them calm. It's an old trick that works better than whistling or shouting. The cows trust a familiar rhythm. Spook them, and you risk a stampede that could kill men and beasts alike. Around you, the world is still. The prairie stretches out into endless black, interrupted only by starlight and the pale smear of moon hanging low in the western sky. Your eyes adjust. Every bush becomes a threat. Every shadow could be more than it seems. Your mind starts to wander, as it always does on night watch. You think back to the first drive you ever joined. 5 years ago, just 17, fresh off a Missouri farm, aching for adventure. You got it too. Lost 3 good horses that summer, came within a foot of being trampled during a thunderstorm outside Wichita. Learned more in 1 month than in all your years at home. You've had offers since then, ranch work, even a chance to stay in Dodge with steady wages and a roof over your head. But something about the open trail keeps pulling you back. The freedom, maybe. The silence. The way no one out here asks questions you don't want to answer. A soft snort breaks your thoughts. Not from your horse. Not from the herd. It's different, closer, sharper. You freeze, hand dropping to your revolver. You ease your gelding to a stop and turn slowly, in the saddle ears straining. There it is again. A horse's breath. Definitely not one of yours. You scan the dark edges of the bed ground. Shadows stretch and shift with the moonlight, and something moves just beyond the furthest ring of cattle. You tighten your grip on the reins and click softly to your horse. He steps forward, careful, alert. Could be nothing, a wild Mustang, maybe even a deer. Could be something. You make a silent signal, with your hand waving across the bed ground toward Jose, the nearest cowboy in your direction. He catches it, doesn't speak, doesn't move fast, just alters his course, subtly swinging out wide like he's checking fence lines. No need to alarm the herd. You ride a slow arc toward the sound, watching every shadow. The hair on the back of your neck rises. Your revolver stays in its holster, but your hand rests just above the grip. Then just before you reach the edge of the herd, you see it, a shape slipping behind a distant cottonwood. 4 legs, long tail. It's just a coyote, you realize, exhaling sharply, probably hoping to scavenge a rabbit or a cow pie. Not a threat. You shake your head and shift in the saddle, trying to work out the tension that built in your spine. Nothing serious. But still, eyes open. The rest of your watch passes like that. Hours stretch thin. You fight against sleep like a boxer in the 10th round. You flex your fingers to stay warm, shift your weight often. Your horse moves slowly, patiently, matching your rhythm. By the time the eastern sky begins to lighten, you're nearly done. Just a few more circuits. The stars begin to fade. The prairie starts to take shape again. You spot Diego riding out from camp, his horse moving with familiar ease. "All quiet," he asks, voice low. You nod. "Thought I heard a horse earlier. Just a coyote, far as I could tell." "Good." He pulls his horse alongside yours. "Coffee's on. Cookie's even making biscuits." Trail boss wants to move out early. You tip your hat, tired beyond words. Diego takes over your path, and you ride back toward the faint glow of camp. Your bones feel like wood. Your mind's foggy, but your job's done. Another night behind you, another day ahead. Cookie hands you coffee and a plate of beans and bacon when you arrive. He doesn't say anything, but the way he slaps the food on your plate says he noticed you held your watch. That's as close to gratitude as he gets. You eat standing up, boots half sunk in dew-damp grass, watching as the camp stirs again. More movement, more groans, more smoke curling into the dawn sky. It's another day on the drive, and you're still in the saddle. The morning moves fast. There's no time to linger after night watch. As soon as the last bite of biscuit is down and your tin cup is drained of lukewarm coffee, you're back at it. Sleep would be a luxury. Instead, you saddle up your gelding again, your body groaning in protest. You feel every bone, every joint. The cold from the night has settled into your muscles, and there's a stiffness in your back that no amount of stretching can shake loose. Left flank today, the trail boss calls out his voice, carrying over the camp like the crack of a whip. You nod, not surprised. It's where you were yesterday, and most likely where you'll be tomorrow. You tighten the cinch on your saddle and mount up with practiced effort, your legs stiff but compliant. As the sun breaks fully over the horizon, the herd is already shifting on its feet, sniffing the air, ready to move. Cattle seem to know when the day's work begins, as if they too have a rhythm now. The dust kicks up fast, fine dry powder that swirls around your boots, rises in clouds beneath the cattle's hooves, and infiltrates every crevice of your gear and clothing. You pull your bandana up over your mouth, but it doesn't do much. Within an hour, your teeth feel gritty. By midday, your tongue feels like sandpaper. Your horse responds easily to the lightest cue from your legs. After so many miles together, the two of you move as one. He adjusts his pace when the herd slows, pulls wide when a steer wanders too far off, and stops with just a shift in your seat. He's steady, smarter than most men you've met. The trail stretches before you, flat, featureless prairie, broken only by the occasional scrub brush or shallow ravine. The sun climbs higher, heat radiates off the earth, and sweat drips from your brow, only to dry in salty crusts around your collar. This is the part of the drive that tests men, not the stampedes, not the river crossings, but this day after day of dust and silence. A heat that bakes the world flat, a monotony that sets your thoughts adrift like tumbleweed. It's when cowboys make mistakes, when men nod off in the saddle and lose their place in the drive, when a drifting steer can turn into a half-mile chase because no one noticed it breaking off in time. You chew a strip of jerky you kept in your pocket from breakfast. It's tough and tasteless, but it keeps your jaw busy and your stomach from grumbling too loudly. There won't be a real meal until sundown. Then movement catches your eye, just a flicker along the right flank. You squint. One of the point riders is waving his hat, circling around fast. You click your horse into motion, trotting toward the commotion. A knot of cattle has bulked at a shallow ravine, reluctant to cross. The lead steers hesitate, shifting their weight, snorting uneasily. The rest of the herd presses in behind them, and you can already feel the tension building. If they panic, you could have a breakaway on your hands. You join the other cowboys, flanking the jam, shouting and waving your arms, using your rope to create movement and noise. Your horse sidesteps expertly, darting in just enough to turn a steer's head, then falling back before he can get gored. These longhorns can be unpredictable, nervous, half-wild creatures bred for toughness, not obedience. Gradually, with pressure and patience, the herd begins to move. The first cattle descend into the ravine, their hooves sliding on loose gravel, then climb the opposite slope. One by one, the others follow. The tension drains like water from a tub. Crisis averted. You fall back into your position, the adrenaline slowly bleeding out of your limbs, replaced by the same old fatigue. By midday, the heat becomes oppressive. The sun glares down, merciless and bright, turning the trail into a shimmering mirage. Every breath feels dry. Every blink grinds grit into your eyes. You sip water from your canteen, only a little. It has to last until camp. You begin counting steers. 1, 2, 3. It's a trick you learned early on. Something to keep your mind focused. Something to keep you from slipping into a mental fog so deep you miss something important. 98, 99. You stop counting when a rabbit bolts from under a clump of grass near your horse's hooves. Instinct kicks in. Before thought, you draw your revolver halfway from its holster, already tracking the movement. But then you freeze. It's just a rabbit, a startled, dusty blur that disappears into the tall grass. You lower your hand, your pulse thudding in your ears. "Jumpy today, ain't ya?" comes a voice from behind. It's Tom, one of the older hands, riding with that crooked grin of his. "Night watch," you mutter, embarrassed. "Didn't sleep much." "Uh-huh," Tom says. "Next time, keep your iron where it belongs, unless you want Cookie to cook your boots for dinner." You chuckle, tension fading a little. Tom's not wrong. Firing a gun this close to the herd could start a stampede that would leave cowboys trampled and cattle scattered for miles. "How much farther to Abilene, you think?" you ask. Tom rubs the back of his neck. 3 weeks if we're lucky. 4 if the weather turns. The thought of Abilene, a hot meal, a real bed, a bath, hits you like a wave. You can almost taste it. But it still feels like a dream. Before you can reply, another shout rings out. A pocket of cattle on the right flank is drifting toward greener grass. You and 2 other cowboys spur your horses forward to head them off, whooping and waving to turn the leaders back. You move quickly, precisely, your horse darting through the dust like a cutting knife. It takes 10 minutes to correct the drift. 10 minutes of hard riding that leaves your thighs burning and your shoulders aching. But it works. The herd pulls together again, and the trail boss riding nearby gives a curt nod. It's the only praise you'll get. By late afternoon, your body is numb. Your legs feel like wood. You ride on autopilot, eyes scanning for strays, ears tuned for trouble. You stop thinking about time. You stop thinking about distance. There's only motion. Constant, mindless motion. Finally, as the sun begins to drop, Casting long shadows across the prairie, the trail boss raises his hand. Camp for the night. The herd turns toward a shallow depression in the land with a stream running through it. Just enough water to satisfy 2,000 thirsty longhorns. As the cattle jostle forward, cowboys move to hold the edges, keeping them from bunching too tightly. You dismount with a groan, legs wobbling. You feel twice your age. Every part of you aches. But your job's not done. Your first priority is your horse. You unsaddle him carefully, check his legs and back for sores, then brush the dust off with handfuls of grass. He's tired too. Sweat streaks his flanks and foam crusts his bit, but he's done his job. Once he's fed and watered, you walk stiffly to the chuck wagon where Cookie is already ladling out dinner. Beans, salt pork, and miraculously biscuits. You take a plate and find a spot on the ground to sit. The food tastes like heaven. You eat slow tonight, letting yourself savor it. Around you, the other cowboys do the same. Nobody talks much. Words feel like work right now. As the fire crackles and the sky darkens, the first night riders saddle up. You're off watch tonight, thank God. The trail boss made that clear earlier, said he needs you sharp for tomorrow. You didn't argue. When your plate's clean, you return it to Cookie and unroll your bed near the fire. You don't undress except for your boots. Your revolver goes under your rolled-up coat. Everything else stays on, just in case. The stars are out again. The same stars you've slept under for weeks. The same ones you'll see tomorrow and the day after. And despite everything, despite the pain, the fatigue, the dust, you smile. Because for all its hardships, this life is yours. You belong here, and tomorrow you ride again. The next morning breaks with a cold wind and a strange energy in the air. Even before Cookie bangs the coffee pot or the trail boss starts barking orders, you can feel it. The whole camp moves faster, more focused, less talking. Everyone knows what today brings. River crossing. You rise from your bedroll, slower than usual. Your body still wrecked from the last 2 days of hard riding. Your right shoulder feels jammed, probably from the sharp twist you made yesterday when heading off that small drift. You roll it once, wince, then ignore the pain, like you always do. No one complains today. No one has to. You fall into the morning rhythm, like clockwork boots, on bedroll, tied coffee, gulped down while it's still scalding and bacon chewed without tasting it. The sky overhead is cloudless, but the air carries that weight that only a river can bring. The smell of it hits you before you see it wet soil, read something deeper and colder underneath. 10 miles ahead, the trail boss calls out over the clatter of gear being packed. Want to cross by mid-afternoon. Keep your heads. Keep the herd tight. Point riders, you're up front. You feel a twitch in your gut as he looks directly at you. You take left point, he says simply. It's not a question. That means you'll be among the first into the water, guiding the cattle across. If your horse balks or loses footing, the herd may refuse to follow. If you screw it up, the whole drive can come apart in minutes, but you don't nod. You just mount up and ride forward, your gelding beneath you, steady as ever. You ride alongside Manuel today. He's riding right point like always. A quiet man's skin weathered like boot leather eyes, sharp beneath his battered sombrero. River's high, he says, glancing ahead. I figured. You fall into silence again. The herd moves slowly behind you. The drag riders keeping pressure at the rear. The flank riders tightening the sides. The dust is thick, but there's a dampness underneath it now, and your horse starts to get jumpy as the scent of the river grows stronger. By mid-morning, you see the first glimpse of it, a brown ribbon of water winding across the prairie like a snake. From this distance, it looks calm, but you know better. Water always looks friendly until it pulls you under. The trail boss rides forward and motions you and Manuel to him. His face is lined deeper than usual, a mix of dust and worry streaking his cheeks. Scouts say there's a better crossing about half a mile downstream, he says, pointing with his chin. Gentle slopes in and out. Strong current, though. Gonna have to space 'em. Can't have 'em bottleneck. Got it, you reply. He gives you one more look, the kind that carries everything a cowboy doesn't say out loud, then rides back toward the center of the herd. You and Manuel angle the herd toward the crossing. As you get closer, you feel your horse tense. His ears twitch, and you reach down to pat his neck. It's just water, you whisper, like we've done before. The river's banks are muddy thick with reeds. You guide your horse down first, the mud sucking at his hooves. He hesitates, then steps forward into the water. It's freezing. By the time it reaches his knees, he's trembling, but still pushing forward. The bottom stays firm gravel, not mud, thank God. You move slow and steady, holding your line toward the opposite bank. The current grabs at your legs, pulling hard. You grip the saddle horn with one hand, the reins with the other, trying to keep your balance as your horse begins to swim. He lunges forward, and for a moment you're weightless. Behind you, you hear the splash and low bellow of the lead cattle entering the river. More hooves, more noise. The herd is following. Manuel is neck deep, already his horse swimming parallel to yours. Neither of you speaks. Halfway across, your horse slips into a deeper pocket. He loses traction, and the current pulls you both slightly off course. You shift your weight, keeping your legs high and body centered. Your stomach tightens. A few more yards and the footing returns. Your horse finds gravel and pushes forward again. When his hooves hit solid ground, it feels like salvation. You reach the opposite shore and turn, immediately watching as the rest of the herd enters the water. It's chaos. Cattle plunge in with clumsy urgency horns, clacking against one another, lowing nervously. Riders move among them, yelling, slapping the water with ropes to keep them moving straight. One steer tries to double back, but a drag rider blocks it just in time. You watch as Manuel reaches the far side too, water streaming off his horse like rain. His eyes meet yours. He nods. More riders make it across. More cattle. Some slip. One goes under, then reappears thrashing. Two cowboys ride hard ropes flying, pulling it back toward shallower water. You hold your breath as one horse stumbles, nearly goes down. The rider stays on somehow, and both scramble out of the current together. It takes more than an hour, but eventually the entire herd is across. Two steers lost to the current. One rider thrown but uninjured. It could have been worse. No one cheers. Cowboys don't celebrate survival. They just move forward. The herd is pushed away from the water to graze on the thick grass along the bank. Everyone is soaked to the skin. You dismount and lead your horse to a dry patch of grass, rubbing him down with rough hands, checking his legs, his hooves. You earned it, you murmur to him, offering a handful of grain from your saddlebag. You hang your wet shirt near the fire later that night. Cookies made stew with real meat, chunks of beef, beans, potatoes. You eat slow, savoring every bite. No one says it, but the better food is Cookie's way of acknowledging the day. No praise, just stew. Around the fire stories start. Back in '67, Tom says, tipping his cup, crossed the Brazos when it was twice as high. Lost 15 head, 2 good men. One got pinned between a steer and a sunken log. Everyone listens. No one interrupts. Had a crossing once where a bull panicked halfway through, adds Diego. Turned the whole lead back around. Took us 6 hours to untangle it. Thought I'd drown right there with a rope around my chest. Even the trail boss says something which is rare. Good work today, he mutters, eyes scanning the fire. Let's not get sloppy tomorrow. Got time to make up. You nod along with the rest of them. Later, you're in your bedroll again. Your body aches. Your skin still smells like river water. But your horse is safe. Your gear is dry. Your belly is full. Tomorrow, it's back to dust and monotony. But tonight, you close your eyes beneath the stars, knowing that today you earned your place. The next few days blur into a familiar rhythm. Dusty trails, endless riding, and the steady motion of the herd inching northward. The river crossing is already a memory, recounted briefly around the fire and then tucked away. Cowboys don't linger on close calls. There's always another one just down the trail. You're back on left flank duty. It suits you. Not as gritty as drag, not as high pressure as point, but it still demands sharp eyes and quick reflexes. Your gelding seems to know the drill now. He anticipates the cattle's movement before you do. Some days, you don't even need the reins, just a shift in your weight, and he's already reacting. The sun is less brutal this week. Clouds pass across the sky now and then, offering blessed shade. The nights remain cold, and mornings come with dew on your blanket. The land changes too. The prairie begins to roll in slow hills. The grass thickens, and cottonwoods dot the landscape more often. You're getting closer to Kansas. You can feel it in the ground, like it's telling you you're not far from your destination. Abilene is maybe 10 days out, if you keep pace if nothing goes wrong. Trouble, however, doesn't need an invitation on a cattle drive. It starts subtly. A strange stillness in the air one morning. You wake with a knot in your gut. An old feeling that you've learned to trust more than you trust the weather reports pinned up in distant towns. The sky is clear, but heavy, like it's holding something back. The cattle seem restless too. Not panicked, just unsettled. They shift more than usual during the drive, lowing and grunting under their breath, as if whispering to one another. Even Cookie seems edgy. He mutters under his breath while making breakfast, tossing extra firewood into the wagon, glancing toward the sky every few minutes. Something's coming, he says, not looking at you. Don't know what yet, but it's something. By mid-morning, the sun vanishes behind a thick layer of cloud. A strange hush settles over the prairie. Even the birds go quiet. The trail boss rides the line twice before noon, his face like stone. Keep 'em tight, he says. If anything spooks 'em, we're in for it. You nod. You've seen what happens when a herd gets rattled. By late afternoon, the wind starts. Not sharp, not gusting, just steady and cold blowing from the north. It cuts through your coat and lifts the dust in strange, swirling patterns along the trail. You pass a lone tree on the ridge, twisted and bent low. The kind of tree that doesn't just grow crooked, but was shaped that way by decades of weather. Storms live out here. By dusk, the cattle are edgy. Their movements sharp. Heads high, ears twitching. The trail boss pulls the herd into a wide open area for the night. No ravines, no trees. Nothing they could crash into if they stampede. It's the kind of space you hate sleeping in, too exposed, no cover. But tonight, it might save lives. 4-man watch, the trail boss says. 2 riders at all times. Rotate every 2 hours. I want eyes on the herd all night. You're assigned first watch. You eat your beans and salt pork fast, barely tasting them. Everyone's quiet listening. The usual banter is gone. The only sounds are the low murmurs of cattle and the wind building in short bursts. The fire burns low. No one wants to give off too much light. You saddle your horse again and ride out with Jose, circling the herd, slowly humming the same old tune you always do. It's quiet work, slow and deliberate. You don't rush. You don't shout. You don't do anything that could jolt a half-asleep steer into bolting. They feel it too, Jose says quietly, after a long stretch of silence. The cows. You nod. Yeah. The sky above is black now, but not with stars. It's the kind of darkness that feels like velvet wrapped too tight around your eyes. Halfway through your shift, lightning flashes in the distance. No thunder. Just a white streak tearing the sky. You both stop and watch. Southwest Jose mutters. Still far off. You better pray it stays that way. You don't talk again for the rest of the watch. When your shift ends, you head back to camp. Your legs numb from the cold, and your eyes raw from the wind. You unsaddle your horse quickly and check him over before rolling into your bedroll revolver tucked close at hand. But sleep doesn't come. The wind picks up more. Sometime after midnight, thunder cracks close. Real close. You shoot up before anyone wakes you, boots already. On coat already buttoned. Riders are scrambling in every direction. The trail boss shouts orders over the wind, his voice barely audible. Then it happens. A lightning bolt flashes so bright it turns the world white, and a second later, the sky explodes. The cattle scream. You've never heard anything like it. Thousands of voices bellowing in fear. Hooves thundering, horns clashing. It's not a herd anymore. It's a monster made of muscle and panic and momentum. Stampede. The word tears through your mind even as your body moves on instinct. You yank your horse's reins, vault into the saddle, and spur him hard, riding straight into the chaos. You can't stop it, not yet. No one can. But you can steer it. The ground shakes beneath your horse as the herd surges forward, 2,000 head of longhorns pounding across the open prairie like a flood of muscle and bone. The sound is deafening, a tidal wave of hooves, panicked bellows, and snapping brush. You can barely see in the darkness, only the occasional flash of lightning illuminating the chaos in stark white glimpses. You ride hard along the left side of the stampede, your gelding pushed to the limit, flanks heaving with every stride. You shout hoarse commands, hi-yaw, but they're swallowed by the roar. Your voice means nothing to these cattle right now. They're not thinking, they're running. The other cowboys are out there somewhere, dots in the dark, each trying to do the same thing. Get ahead of the herd curve. It gently slow its momentum. Keep it from hitting a ravine or running straight off a cliff. One wrong move by any rider, one bad step by a horse, and it's over. Another flash of lightning reveals a steer less than 10 feet ahead of you, its massive horns catching the light like scythes. You veer just in time, your horse skidding sideways, dirt flying. You've done this before, but it never gets easier. Your goal is clear. Swing the leaders. If you can get them to turn even slightly, the herd will begin to arc. A stampede can't stop on a dime, but it can bend. A curve becomes a spiral, and a spiral eventually breaks the charge. You dig your heels into your gelding's sides, yelling into the wind. He responds, pushing harder. You pull wide, get just far enough ahead of the leaders to be seen, and start angling in. Your arm swings your rope not to lasso, but to create noise and motion. You yell again. Hi-ya, turn it. You old fools. They see you, not clearly. Not as a man on a horse, but as an obstruction, a shape in their path, a wall of noise and motion. The leaders twitch. One veers slightly, then another. You press the angle harder, cutting across the front. It's working. The herd begins to curve, not fast, not sharp, but just enough. The thunder of hooves changes pitch as the direction shifts. You catch a glimpse of another rider doing the same on the opposite side. Might be Diego, or maybe Tom. Hard to tell in the flickering dark. The rain hits then. Cold, sudden, a curtain of needles driven by wind. Your hat's soaked through in seconds, your coat clinging to your back like a second skin. The dust vanishes, replaced by mud and slick grass. Your horse slips once recovers, keeps running. The herd starts to spiral. It's not calm, not even close, but it's slowing. You keep pressing, guiding, yelling every nerve in your body, tuned to the movement of the cattle and the balance of your horse. One wrong move, one slip, and they'll trample you without a second thought. Another bolt of lightning cracks across the sky, illuminating the spiral. You see it, the curve you helped shape. 2,000 longhorns turning on themselves, the energy bleeding out with each loop. And then, like a wave that's lost its power, the stampede breaks. They slow, one by one. Their hooves still moving, but no longer pounding. Their breaths still ragged, but not panicked. The thunder fades. The chaos recedes. Silence doesn't return. Not yet. But the worst is over. You pull up your horse, lathered in sweat and shaking beneath you. You reach down, stroke his neck. "We did it," you murmur. "We held him." In the dark, other cowboys emerge, some leading wounded horses, some on foot. One man limps toward the regrouping line with a bloody gash on his forehead. Tom rides in from the far side, soaked his hat, missing his expression grim. "Roll call," the trail boss shouts. "Sound off." Names echo through the darkness. "Here, still in one piece. Lost my rope, but I'm good." You add your voice to the list. When the count finishes, you learn the miracle: no deaths. A few injuries. One horse lame, but no riders lost. No cattle over a cliff. In Stampede terms, it's a win. By now, the rain has eased to a drizzle, and the wind dies down enough for the fire to be rekindled. Wet clothes steam. Cookie hands out tin cups of hot coffee, his usual grumbling replaced by quiet efficiency. You take your cup with both hands, letting the heat sink into your frozen fingers. Your teeth chatter, your legs tremble. But you're alive. The herd's intact. "You swung 'em good," Tom says, passing by. "Damn good." You don't answer. You just nod the compliment heavier than it sounds. On the trail, praise is rare, and it means something when it comes. You return to your bedroll now, soaked and lay down in damp clothes with a blanket that offers little warmth. But you don't care. Sleep comes the way it always does after a stampede, like a hammer, sudden and absolute. And for a few blessed hours, you drift into darkness without dreams. You wake late, if such a word even applies out here, more like you're shaken from a sleep so deep it might have been mistaken for unconsciousness. The gray light of morning seeps through your eyelids, and the first sound you hear is the soft rustle of cattle moving slowly through tall grass. Then comes the creaking of leather, the scrape of boots, Cookie's familiar banging on the coffee pot, and the grumbled curses of tired men trying to shake off the night. The storm is gone. The sky is pale blue, washed clean by the rain. Everything smells different, fresher, cooler. Even the dust is temporarily tamped down. The prairie softened underfoot, but it won't last. You know better than to think the trail ever stays kind for long. You sit up with a groan, every muscle reminding you of the night before. Your coat is damp, your bedroll soaked, and your back feels like it's been beaten with a fence post. Still, you're alive. The herd is alive, and that counts for more than most things. The trail boss is already walking the perimeter of the bed-ground boots, squelching in the wet grass, jaw tight, as he checks the herd for injuries or scattered cattle. You fall into the routine without thinking, boot up, gather your gear, roll your bed, and drag yourself toward the chuck wagon. Cookie slaps a tin plate of beans and salt pork into your hands without a word. Nobody talks much, just the occasional cough, the rustle of utensils, the clink of coffee cups. The men are spent. But there's something else in the silence too, a weight lifted. The worst is behind you. A stampede survived changes something in a man. It humbles you, binds you to the others who rode through it. You all came out of it sore and shaken, but intact. You finish your food, saddle your horse, and prepare for the day's ride. No one needs to be told what to do. Everything about a cattle drive becomes muscle memory. After a while, hands tying rope, eyes scanning the herd, bodies shifting in the saddle with each step. The herd's moving better today, more relaxed. Whatever spooked them is gone now. You ride flank again, your gelding keeping steady beside the rolling line of longhorns. He's tired. You can feel it in the way he moves. So are you. But this is the life you both signed up for. The trail boss sets a solid pace. The aim is to make up time lost during the storm, but he's careful not to push too hard. Tired cattle break bones and stray easier. It's a fine line between progress and disaster. The sun climbs slowly, the air crisp but warming. Somewhere in the distance, you spot a pronghorn, standing on a rise, watching the herd pass like a ghost from another time. You tip your hat to it, out of habit. You find yourself thinking of Abilene again. It's closer now, maybe 5 days away if things go right. You imagine the saloons, the hot bathhouses, the warm meals, the clean sheets. The simple act of sitting on a chair instead of the ground. But there's something else to uncertainty. Every mile that brings you closer to the railhead also brings you closer to the end of this particular chapter. What happens next? Do you sign on with the same outfit for the return drive? Find a ranch for the winter? Take your wages and drift west like so many others have done? That's the thing about cowboy life. It's freedom, yes, but it's also rootlessness. No home, no promises. Just the next herd, the next job, the next sunrise over a different piece of sky. A low whistle pulls you from your thoughts. One of the flank riders on the opposite side is signaling small drift on the right. 3 steers nosing toward a patch of greener grass. You break off, clicking your horse forward. He responds instantly, moving with more energy than you expected. You circle wide, then ease back in, guiding the drift back into the main line. No rope needed, just presence and position. The steer at the front snorts once, then falls back into line. The others follow. Problem solved. By midday, you've covered nearly 10 miles in impressive pace. The trail boss calls a halt near a creek where the herd can water and graze. You dismount with effort, every joint screaming. You check your horse's legs, hooves, and flanks, brushing him down with handfuls of dry grass. He's hot and tired, but sound. You splash your face in the creek, the cold water shocking you awake. Then you drink deeply, refill your canteen, and lean against a boulder while the cattle scatter to drink. Manuel rides over, swinging down beside you. His hat drips with the last of the rain from the night before, and his mustache is damp with creek water. "We're almost there," he says. You nod. "Feels strange, doesn't it?" He shrugs, always does. The trail has a way of changing you. You become so accustomed to motion, to distance, to dust and silence, that the idea of stopping, of choosing a door in town instead of an open horizon, feels unnatural. That night, around the fire, there's more laughter than usual. Someone pulls out a harmonica and starts playing a slow, wandering tune. Tom starts singing badly, but nobody tells him to stop. It feels good to make noise again, to be reminded you're more than just shadows herding shadows across the plains. The trail boss sits a little apart, like always. He watches the fire, sips his coffee, and doesn't say much. But there's a slight tilt to his mouth that you've come to recognize. Satisfaction, relief, maybe even pride. Tomorrow, the final stretch begins. The home stretch, the end of the drive, is in sight. But out here, you never take anything for granted. Not until the last steer walks through the stockyard gate. The morning greets you, With a golden hush, dew clings to the grass, and a light fog hugs the hills, softening the world. But under that peace is something else, something taut and electric. Excitement. The trail boss confirms it with a wordless gesture as he rides past the bedground and holds up 3 fingers. 3 miles? That's all that's left between you and Abilene. You saddle your horse with more care than usual, not because you're feeling sentimental, but because it feels right. He's carried you through storms, stampedes, crossings, and countless miles of sun and grit. The least he deserves is a firm cinch and a gentle touch. As the herd starts to move, the air feels different. The cattle are less skittish, more focused. Maybe they smell the town ahead smoke rail human life. Or maybe they're just tired, just like you. You ride left flank, out of habit, though the trail boss has made it clear today's more about arrival than control. He just wants to keep them moving in a line until the last gate clinks shut behind them. The land flattens as the town draws near. The hills fade into open prairie again, and in the distance buildings emerge like mirages. Low barns, water towers, the angled roof of the stockyards, and behind them, the faint outline of rail cars waiting to haul 2,000 longhorns eastward. It hits you like a cold wind. You've made it. You don't cry. Cowboys don't cry. But you breathe a little deeper, like you've been holding it all this time and didn't know it. As you crest a low ridge, the sounds of civilization rise to meet you. Train whistles, barking dogs, distant hammering, and the occasional shout from the stockyard pens. Abilene may not be a city in the way New York or Chicago is, but after the endless silence of the trail, it sounds like thunder. The herd moves slower, now more cautious, penned in by rail fencing and side guards posted by the stockyard men. You ride tight, guiding them down a narrow chute. Your horse is alert, his ears twitching as he picks up on the new noises. Then comes the gate. Heavy wood slats, iron latch. The moment the first steer crosses it, the job is done. You hold your breath as it creaks open. One by one, the cattle pass through the longhorns, stepping into holding pens already crowded with other herds from across Texas. Some low, some push. A few stop and sniff the ground. But they move. They all move. You're near the back, now your horse standing beside the fence as the final group of steers crosses. And just like that, it's over. You sit still for a long moment. The dust begins to settle. The sounds of the town rise louder, and your hands? They're trembling. Not from fear, not from fatigue, from relief. Good ride, the trail boss says, as he appears beside you, his horse already lathered and restless. Damn good ride. You nod. That's all that needs to be said. Within the hour, the paperwork's being drawn up at the stock office. Tallies made. Prices negotiated. The railmen bark orders at one another, and the smell of manure, sweat, and industry fills the air. The crew gathers near the chuck wagon one last time, standing in a loose circle. You're all covered in trail dust, sweat-stained, sunburned. But there's something different in how you stand now. Straighter. Like men who've survived something together. The trail boss steps up with a small pouch in hand. He doesn't make a speech, just calls names. Tom, Jose, Manuel, you. One by one, he drops a small stack of bills into each rider's hand. The pay for the drive. Hard-earned and honest. You count it only once before tucking it deep into your coat. It's not a fortune, but it's enough. Enough to get a room for a few nights. Enough to buy a new pair of boots. Maybe even enough to stake a small claim, or lose it all in a saloon if you're not careful. As the sun reaches its peak, the crew starts to drift apart. Some head toward the hotel to clean up. Others veer off to the saloon. One man is already talking to a rail agent about signing on to accompany the cattle east. You watch them go, and for the first time, you feel something close to loneliness. The trail was hard, brutal even, but it was yours, and now it's behind you. You walk your horse to the stable down the main street. The stable master takes him with a nod, recognizing the wear and tear on both beast and rider. You pay extra to have him brushed and fed well. He earned it, you say. The man nods, silent agreement in his eyes. Then you walk into town, into the noise and movement and strange softness of a place with buildings and people and chairs. You find a bathhouse first. It's small, but the water is hot. The girl behind the counter raises an eyebrow when you walk in, but doesn't say a word as you peel off your trail-worn clothes. You soak until your skin feels raw. Then you find a barber, a meal, real steak, not beans, and finally a room with a bed that doesn't roll or creak. You sit on the edge of it, staring at the floor. You could sleep. You should. But instead, you reach into your coat and pull out the small stack of bills. You fan them once, then set them on the table. Then quietly, you open your journal. Just a few lines. That's all you write. We crossed the red. Survived the storm. Made it to Abilene. The herd's delivered. My horse is safe. I still breathe. I'm still me. You close the journal. And finally, you let yourself rest. The town of Abilene doesn't sleep. Not really. Even deep into the night, when the moon hangs low and the lamps burn soft in the windows, you can still hear it. The shuffle of boots on wooden planks, the distant roll of dice, the bark of laughter from a saloon, and the clink of glasses behind swinging doors. You wake in the room you rented above the general store. It's early, but the light's already creeping through the curtains. The bed was soft too. Soft, really. It left your back aching in a different kind of way. Your body had grown too used to hard earth and saddle leather. You stretch, blink a few times, and stand. The floor creaks under your weight. You rub a hand through your beard stubbles, already returning, and splash cold water from the basin over your face. In the mirror, a man stares back at you. Same eyes, same jaw. But the trail changed him. There's a weight in the stare, something earned. You dress in silence, moving like the habits are still stitched into your bones, boots, belt, hat. You leave your spurs off today. You're not riding, not yet. Downstairs, the clerk nods as you pass, eyes lingering a second longer than necessary. You get that sometimes. Cowboys bring in coin, but they also bring dust and silence. And most townsfolk don't know what to do with either. The streets are already alive. Wagons roll past, pulling crates and barrels toward the rail depot. A preacher's handing out flyers. Kids are chasing a stray dog through the mud. And outside the saloon, 3 men are already halfway through their first bottle of whiskey. You pass by them and head toward the telegraph office. Inside, the clerk looks up with mild surprise as you enter. Message to send, he asks. You nod, pulling a small slip of paper from your coat. Just 1 line, you say. He gestures and you hand it over. Herd delivered. All safe. James. He taps it out quickly. No fuss. You pay and leave the coins lighter in your pocket, but your mind easier. Outside, the sky stretches wide and clean. The prairie beyond town, beckoning like an old friend you're not quite ready to visit again. You wander. First to the stables where your gelding stands in a fresh stall, brushed fed, his coat gleaming in the morning light. He nickers softly as you approach. You scratch behind his ears and whisper, "You did good." Then to the blacksmith's where you check your saddle and tack. A few repairs needed, but nothing that can't be done by noon. Then to the tailor's. You stand awkwardly among clean shirts, folded trousers, and fresh boots. Everything smells new. Everything looks breakable. Still, you pick out a shirt. A good one. Soft cotton, dark blue. It costs more than you like, but you pay without argument. Later that afternoon, you find yourself seated on the porch of the hotel, coffee in hand, watching the street. A man could lose himself here, take the rest of the money, and set up a quiet life. but deep down, you know it wouldn't last. The trail calls louder than any town. The trail is simple, honest, even when it tries to kill you. Town is complicated. Eyes that watch, smiles that lie, doors that close if you walk in the wrong way, wearing the wrong dust. You hear footsteps beside you and glance over. It's Manuel. He sits down without a word, sips from his own cup. You thinking of heading back? He asks eventually. You nod. Figured I'd give it a week. Rest up. Then maybe take a job on another herd southbound. He grunts in agreement. Trail don't end, just changes direction. You both sit there for a while watching the sun sink low. The shadows stretch long. When he finally gets up to leave, he tips his hat. If you ride, you let me know. I will. You spend the evening walking the edge of town, out where the buildings stop and the prairie begins. You sit on a fence post and watch the wind move through the grass, the last light painting gold over everything. You think about the boys who didn't make it through other drives, the ones who got bucked, got caught under hooves, or just disappeared in the rain one night. You think about the men who started out tough, but cracked somewhere in the silence between campfires. You wonder how close you were to being one of them, but you didn't crack. You held, you steered the Stampede, you crossed the river, you made it to Abilene, and now you get to choose what comes next. For the first time in a long while, the road ahead is open and quiet. You tip your hat to the setting sun and smile. Morning again. Pale light over the prairie. This time, though, you don't wake to the sound of cattle or cookie-banging pots. There's no trail boss barking orders, no dust in your teeth. Just the sound of a town stretching awake wagons rolling storefronts, creaking open a rooster crowing somewhere down by the livery. You stand by your window, looking out over Abilene's main street. It's quieter now that the herd's penned and sold. Cowboys trickle out one by one, some chasing the next job, some chasing the bottom of a bottle, some just chasing something they can't name. You know that feeling. By now, your saddle's been fixed, your gear cleaned, you've eaten your fill of real food, even got your boots shined by a boy who said you looked like a real trail legend. You chuckled at that. Legend. Funny word. Funny how folks in town look at you like you're some dusty hero just because you survived something they don't understand. But you do understand it. The drive wasn't about glory. It was about grit. About doing a job with your hands and your horse and a few good men who wouldn't quit when the sky split open or the herd lost its mind. You tie your bedroll tighter, sling your saddlebag over your shoulder. One last check of the room. One last glance at the worn floorboards and the little wooden desk where you wrote that note to your folks. Then you head out, down the stairs, across the creaking porch, boots hitting dirt. The town's alive but fading behind you already. At the stable, your horse is ready, fed, brushed, waiting. He lifts his head when he sees you and lets out a soft whinny like he knows what comes next. You toss your saddle over him, cinch it firm. Check the stirrups, the bit, the reins. Routine, ritual. You mount up slow, let him feel your weight again. Then you sit tall, grip the horn, and ride out. No fanfare, no farewell, just the quiet clip of hooves on packed dirt and the wind in your face as you turn away from town and toward the open land. There's talk of another herd needing riders down in Waco. Maybe that's where you'll go. Or maybe west. Colorado maybe. Or farther. Doesn't really matter. What matters is the ride, the land beneath you, the sky above you, the next sunrise, and the one after that. You pass a farmer fixing a fence. He lifts a hand. You nod. You pass a creek you don't remember crossing on the way in. It sparkles in the sun. By noon, Abilene is a speck behind you. Just another town. Another place you pass through. But the trail, it never ends. It just keeps going. You ride on dust rising behind you. You're not looking back. You're not slowing down. You're a cowboy. and the trail is your home.